Welcome to Intro Skippers, where an entertainment journalist and an entertainer are friends who love streaming entertainment and are talking about it. There is no reason you should be saying there's nothing to watch, because we're here. Hi, everyone.
Oh, yeah. And have we got a show for you this week?
That's right. We are talking about a Netflix sensation that is part of a, let's say, rising tide of content coming for you this summer, which I'll explain more as a whole. And then the rest of this as, yeah.
Well, I think let's introduce ourselves. I'm Jason Charles Miller, and you are?
I'm Kim Horcher. Hello.
Hi.
What did you do this week before we get into everything, Jason?
Everything.
So much NDA work.
Rehearsals, though. I did sing at the Whiskey Jam, which is pretty cool. Every Tuesday night in Hollywood at the famous Whiskey A Go-Go, there's something called the Ultimate Jam Night. And a lot of working musicians who just, maybe they're in town, they're not on tour at the moment. And so it's all organized by a rather legendary musician named Chuck Wright, who's played with everyone from Alice Cooper to Montrose to Quiet Riot and many other acts. And he organizes this event and they put all the songs together. And I sang 2 songs of that. It's hosted by television's Hal Sparks. And
I just heard him on a podcast. He was so funny.
Yeah. The former host of Talk Soup back in the day.
Oh, he was?
Mm-hmm.
I only saw it with Aisha Tyler and Joel McHale.
He was the host right before that. Yeah.
I remember watching Aisha Tyler when I was like a little kid and being like, wow, she is so cool. And then I got older and she was doing the Ubisoft presentations and doing all this like character work and comedy work. And I thought she is the coolest woman. And that is why I like her so much to this day. And she's a personal hero of mine.
That's great. She's awesome.
And I don't feel that way about Hal Sparks, but I do like him.
Okay. Well, he's a friend of mine and I really like him. So, you know.
Yeah, I just listened to him on a different podcast and he was so funny.
Yeah, he's great. So I did that. And then I recorded a few episodes of the Pathfinder podcast that I'm on the Glass Cannon Network called Legacy of the Ancients. And then everything else I did is NDA.
Very good.
What'd you do?
I was also on another podcast. I co-host the Firefox podcast, the official Firefox podcast Outside the Fox. So I did another episode of that. I started streaming Expedition 33 or Claire Obscure Expedition 33. So that's going on my Twitch if you want to check that out. And I posted clips to our Instagram and TikTok and I'm bad at it. So,
no, you're not.
And I'm working on something else I'm not supposed to talk about, but it's not as big of a deal as the thing you're not supposed to talk about, but still.
Okay. Well, who knows? It could be.
It's not.
Or you just want us to think that.
No, I don't really do that. I am just an egomaniac and I love talking about me. So let's get into what we're talking about today.
Oh, yeah.
None other than the Poop Cruise, or rather, Trainwreck, Poop Cruise. What were you doing Valentine's Day of 2013? For a group of 4,000 people at sea, they were dealing with lots and lots of poop.
God. This was riveting. It was super fun to watch. Also kind of gross.
Very gross. I ate it. I was eating a meal while watching it and I had to stop.
I hope you weren't eating lasagna. Because there was a reference. Okay, sorry, there was a reference. He called it lasagna.
I know the reference. I know it.
Okay.
Oh, Jesus. It's just so gross. But he was one of my favorite characters, the chef.
He was great.
So this is a 55-minute documentary episode directed by James Ross, part of Netflix's Trainwreck anthology. Jason, did you know that this is the third to come out of 8 this summer from the Trainwreck anthology?
I did.
Disastertainment.
I did. First of all, I love the term disastertainment.
It's exactly what this is.
Yeah. Second of all, a friend of mine a couple days ago called me about a different Trainwreck episode that maybe we'll cover later, the one about the mayor of Toronto.
I've seen it. I don't see how that one is as much of a train wreck because it really was more slow motion and centered on one person. But actually, before I get to the episode, let's talk about Trainwreck a little bit. It's an anthology documentary series that delves into 8 standalone real-world disasters and cultural spectacles that captivated global attention. Each one focuses on one event or one mayor, and it is told through the eyes of the people who live them. I will say, if they're anything like this episode, they're not that deep and more focused on the entertainment aspect. I wouldn't call this a documentary per se like they do, but sure. The first 2 that came out before this, June 10th and June 17th, were the Astro World tragedy, which is not funny and actually made me very mad at Travis Scott. The second one was the Rob Ford scandal. Poop Cruise, number 3. July 1st, the Cult of American Apparel. Again, I would not say that's an event. That's a slow moving thing, but it is interesting.
Yeah.
But then we have the real Project X. That's the 2012 Dutch party that just exploded online and got really wild. Something called PI Moms, which is a reality series turned alleged drug scandal. Don't know about the one, so
Wow.
I will look into that. And lastly, July 29th will feature Trainwreck Storm Area 51. Remember that meme?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Were you going to go?
Naruto run to that.
Were you going out there? Were you one of the ones?
No.
Okay.
If there's aliens, I don't want to meet them. Well, I first of all think there is alien life, but I don't think it's what we think in popular culture. I think it's like algae, which is far less interesting.
Right. I mean, the main thing is like if aliens showed up tomorrow in the sky with giant ships, most people would be like, cool, but are you going to pay my rent?
To the
Right?
aliens?
Yeah. Like how, like if they show up, like what are they going to do that's going to affect our lives in a positive way? If it's positive, great. I think everybody will be into it. If it's whatever, you know,
Like we're cattle, we're
yeah, like
meat.
more people are worried about, you know, their everyday life and paying the bills than they are, you know, communing with aliens.
This is way off topic, but we saw the actual. There were news releases that were like, "Yeah, we think aliens are real. Here's some footage from the military," and nobody cared.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can dispute what it was that those cameras captured, but that's a whole thing. We're not talking about that today. I could talk about this for a long time.
I do think they're real, but yeah, that's another episode.
So we are actually talking about a big boat full of poop. That's more important.
It is.
So this happened February 10th through 14th, 2013 on the Carnival Triumph in the Gulf of Mexico. It affected over 4,200 people, about 3,000 passengers, about 1,000 crew, a little bit more of each, but, you know, just generalizing here. And it happened somewhere between Cozumel, Mexico and Alabama, USA. There were first-hand interviews with passengers and crew, including a bachelorette group, a father-daughter pair, and a son-in-law trying to impress his father-in-law-to-be, a cigar-chomping maritime lawyer.
Yeah, which they did a job of really not telling us any of their names. Maybe they said their names at the very beginning, but they never said their names again. So yeah, it was just sort of like these 4 groups: the father, the daughter, the bachelorette party, and the dude.
This is not a documentary.
Yeah, not at all. It was just pure disastertainment.
Disastertainment.
Mm-hmm.
It's light. It's not that deep, but there is a deeper story. Maybe we'll get to it toward the end. This was a darkly comedic and sensationalized. Again, it's disastertainment. It's honest and shocking and often played for morbid laughs. It is fun. It's very surface, but it does underscore the fragility of luxury, how quickly we can descend into chaos if our basic needs aren't being met, and how viral it got, you know, not just with the poo-poo, but on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's get into it then. So this is told mainly through people who were on it, like we were discussing. We also had Jen, who was the voice of the Carnival ship, and she was very positive, but maybe not always getting the right information. Hannah, the bartender, who is not American and finds Americans very funny.
Yes, and had a lot of sex. She wanted to really point that out at the beginning.
She was like, it happens. There's sex. You know what? When the alarm went off, I was in someone else's bed. Get over it. But she was like, I was around Americans, and they're all saying, yeehaw, and having fun, and I never thought I would see this in my life. Yeah, so it seems like they had a great time getting there and going to Cozumel, which is an island off of Riviera Maya. And I could have gone there when I was visiting Mexico for a trip last year, but I chose not to because I heard the cruises just take over the island and I didn't want to deal with that.
Sure. Yeah, God, imagine being there when a cruise shows up and you're just trying to have a good time.
Yeah, well, I was trying to avoid, like, I mean, in that whole area, the Cancun adjacent area, it's very much like Hollywood Boulevard for us. So I was trying to get away from that, and I was largely successful. But yeah, it's a real party atmosphere all over the boat. People are drinking, they're gorging, they're getting drunk, they are passing out, they are getting hung over. Party ship all the way. Then one night, as they're coming back from Cozumel, they start hearing blaring over the siren, in every room over a siren, where they're going, Alpha Team, Alpha Team,
Alpha
and
Team.
It's like, what the hell? What does this mean? What would you think if you heard Alpha Team?
I would think that pirates were invading the ship, and then maybe it was like Alpha Team was like another SEAL team.
So there's like a hidden compartment full of trained response military.
Yeah. And they jump out. Alpha Team ready. I think that's what I would hope.
The Pirates of the Caribbean. So then the chef says he sees smoke coming out of the kitchen sink while he's working the night shift, and he's like, what? And I think the bachelor party said, I saw flame shooting out of the fin, and what we saw was not flames, it was smoke, but it was still concerning. So Apparently there was a fire in the engine room, and they underplayed it at first, but it turns out it burned through all the electrical wires for the whole ship. So there's no air conditioner, no power. The boat is dead in the water, and the toilets need electricity and won't flush without it. This is where it starts to be a problem.
That ended up being the biggest story of the whole epic, is that they needed electricity for those toilets to work, and they weren't working.
They're not like your house toilets, I guess. I guess they're more like plane toilets. I don't know. I've never been on a cruise. And this is a big reason why I've never been on a cruise, this whole incident.
I've never been on a cruise. I've come close a couple times, never been on one. And of course, like during the COVID times too, like what happened to people on cruise ships
they got trapped.
Yeah, so that's kind of,
it just seems like it's prime for disease to spread, for poo-poo to go everywhere. I hate disease and poo-poo, Jason. I don't know that about you, but that's a pet peeve.
Yeah, I'm not really into either of those things either, just for the record. What I will say, though, is they really made a big deal. The people they were interviewing were like, I'm not going to poop in a bag. Like, they loved, like, really, like, honing on the fact that we're going to hold our poop. I'm taking Imodium, so I don't have to poop in a bag.
I vow that I will not poop in a bag. So what happened was Jen, bless her, was saying, all right, everyone, well, number one's in the shower and number two's in these biohazard bags.
We're going to bring biohazard bags to every room, and if you got to go number two, put it in the bag,
and then throw it in the poo-poo bin.
Can I say something for a second? So, I have been a touring musician since I was 19.
Wow.
And therefore, you very quickly learn how to fall asleep anywhere, right?
You can do that?
I can't. And you also learn very quickly kind of that the creature comforts of your home bathroom are not always going to be available. So you have to kind of train yourself to kind of go anywhere too, if need be. That leads me to We were touring with a band, Static X. My old band Godhead was on tour with Static X. They have a song called Shit in a Bag. That's the name of one of their songs. And because
Did they mean for like dogs or like this?
No, because here's what it is. When you're on a tour bus, now they may have changed, the technology keeps getting better and better, but your standard tour bus in the early 2000s, you could go number 1 in it, but you really can't go number 2 in it. Do that at the truck stop. Don't do number 2 in here, because then the driver's the one that has to empty the waste, right? So it's just kind of rude to do number 2 in a bus. And also it's a problem.
Doesn't it stink?
Yes. There's so many problems with this, right? So let's say you're on an overnight drive and you've really got to go. Well, you take a bag, line it inside.
Jason.
And that's what you do. So
this feels so much more real to me now, and I really don't like it.
Well, I'm sorry.
This is a real turd.
Yeah. But so me being somebody that has had to do that for so many years, there was a disconnect for me of why some people couldn't just go in the bag. But you know what? I get it. I totally get it.
I'm normal. I can speak to that. No, I don't want to do that. I
well,
do
nobody
not want to
wants
poop
to
anywhere like that. I would rather hold it in.
Yeah.
I get it.
Okay.
It's gross. So people were doing number 1s in the shower with like an emergency light that gets activated by soda, and it's like a strobe light. So you're in the shower squatting and there's a strobe light, and it's also hot and dark. And that's an experience.
Wait, why does it get activated? That was the one part I was confused at.
So it was an emergency light for the life vest.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently it gets activated by water. So like if you fall in the ocean, it'll be activated.
Right. Oh,
but
okay.
they
So
were
you
like,
just pour soda on it to activate
because they couldn't get,
water to work.
So they're like, well, this is what we have. Let's use the soda. And it's apparently really hot and dark in the ship. It starts to stink for obvious reasons, because it's just, I don't think the number 1 was going really down the drain that much. It was kind of backing up and just sitting there, under the lip of the shower.
And then sometimes over the lip of the shower on day 4 and 5.
Okay, so here's what happened. At first they thought they were going to go back to Mexico, be pulled in by a tugboat back to Progreso. But then it turned out that the ship had gone adrift and gone over 100 miles away from Mexico. So the new plan is to get boats from Alabama to pull them up to Mobile. And that took extra time. So they're on this trip even longer, having to hold it in if that's their goal. And oh God, this is gross. Why did we pick this? So toilets overflowed. They couldn't find, like, this one man, the man who was trying to impress his father-in-law, he heard a rumor there was one toilet that worked on the ship. So he looked and looked, and he saw what is described by the chef as a lasagna.
Well,
it's a lasagna of layers of toilet paper and waste, and layers of toilet paper and waste. And I'm not going to get granular. You can think about that yourself. And then when the tugboats got there, they were pulling the ship, which is great. However, the ship was at an angle so that anything that was, sitting still in the shower would suddenly tilt, as liquids do. And then waste was running down the walls. It was all over the floor in the cafeteria, which was where they were eating their non-refrigerated foods, because the refrigerators broke. So they're eating like cookies and chips and stuff.
They said it got into the elevator and it sounded like it was raining.
That's like that thing from The Shining, but far worse.
Yeah. In The Shining, it was just blood.
I'd rather it be blood.
Same.
So people were sleeping on the decks because of the smell and heat and poor circulation.
It was Lord of the Flies with adults.
Well, people started losing their minds and like fighting over chairs and deck space and like pushing and throwing. And it's just like, That's how quickly it devolved. And someone said, I don't know why the bar wasn't open. And I was like, I know why the bar wasn't open. This is going to make everything so much worse. What do people do when they drink too much? They expel bodily fluids. And what can we not get rid of? Huh? That's why the bar wasn't open. But
then they opened it.
And it was not just open, it was free.
Yeah.
So people were hoarding and grabbing, just being awful. I mean, again, speaking of the pandemic, where it's people's worst inclinations coming out of, you know, being tribalistic and fighting other people and stealing and hoarding. And it wasn't good. People got drunk and were peeing off the side of the ship, which is okay if you're a man, but as they showed in animation, doesn't work if you're a woman. And yeah, it was fully disgusting. And then they go to the part, this is the part that I can weigh in. There's a woman from CNN who was like, should we cover this? Is this a story? And I was like, yes, this is a story. This is like catnip for news, for especially 24-hour news. Obviously, this is a story. I hope she was being facetious when she said that, because like, if an assignment editor hears this, they're like, oh yeah, that's a story. So they definitely needed to dispatch to that and start reporting and trying to get whatever they could, firsthand accounts off the ship, because it's involving over 4,000 people. And it's, you know, like I mentioned off the top, the travesty of modern luxury and human tribalism and inclinations toward being terrible, erupting all at once. Yeah, it's a story.
Were you in news back then? Did you know about it happening?
I was actually very early at the Young Turks at this point.
Okay.
So I would call that kind of news. It wasn't like traditional journalism. It's more like discussing things and offering opinions. I certainly wasn't on the air doing this kind of thing, so I didn't get to cover it. But yeah, I knew just from working at an assignment desk that this is definitely a story. It's definitely something you launch the chopper to go to.
A lot of interesting things happened to the people afterwards, including the maritime lawyer trying to go after Carnival Cruises and realizing that there was kind of an ironclad agreement that you signed
that you
when you bought a ticket. And
that's
that they can't guarantee healthy food. They can't guarantee a safe passage.
They can't guarantee hygienic living spaces.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
From what I understand, Carnival changed their policy after that on their ticket.
Yes,
because they were sort of like pushed to.
I do have some research on that. So after this, I mean, in the immediate aftermath, passengers were offered refunds, travel expenses, $500, which no, that's not enough, and credit for a future cruise, not going. Dozens of lawsuits followed. I think they were all settled out of court. But then the U.S. Coast Guard investigated Carnival, and they faced significant public backlash over safety and crisis management. And they had to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in safety upgrades across the fleet. So after the Triumph incident, which, by the way, they renamed the Triumph, and she's back at sea. So I don't know.
She's called the Sunrise now. So just keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind. I'm not saying do anything, but think about it. So after that incident and another fire in 2010 on the Carnival Splendor, they decided they were going to work on backup power systems, fire prevention and detection systems, improved sewage and waste management systems,
Thank God.
And better redundancy in propulsion. And then there was a voluntary safety standard called the Passenger Bill of Rights of 2013, which includes the right to timely updates during emergencies, the right to adequate food, water, and sanitation, the right to a refund or credit if a cruise is ended early due to mechanical failure. Though I will say this is not a federal regulation. It is a commitment that the industry is saying that they're going to adhere to, but there is no legal requirement to actually stick to that, though all the major cruise lines have said they would commit to that. Okay. The Triumph incident led to a drop of bookings and stock price for Carnival in 2013. I think they bounced back. There was a major PR campaign to damage control. And,
I wonder what that was like. I wonder, I would love to be in the brainstorming room for that. And I'm like, how do we do this?
What do we do?
Yeah.
Every passenger gets free fertilizer. Also part of the Bill of Rights are the right to disembark if essential provisions can't be provided. If food, water, toilets, and medical care are unavailable, passengers can leave the ship under the purview of the port authorities. And they have to receive factual updates from the captain or ship personnel during mechanical failures. So when they were like, don't worry, it's fine, it's all good, and it's going to be taken care of, they have to actually be accurate now. So, great. But shipbuilders since then have implemented significant technical and procedural changes, including what I mentioned before, redundant power and propulsion, upgraded sewage and waste, which will work in case of a power outage now. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And there is monitoring alerts if before overflow occurs. So, overflow.
Here's the thing, though. When they showed the footage of all of the power cables that were just burnt to a crisp, and these were the main power cables going to the entire ship, all of the backup procedures in the world, if it's just all burnt to a crisp and in the same spot, what are you going to do? So I hope that these new systems that they've put in place are like in different spots, are more robust.
I would hope they're in two different parts of the ship.
Yeah. One's
and like they're maybe not connected to each other per se, but connected to an intermediary spot in the middle. But at least the waste system now will flush without electricity.
Thank God.
So it was pretty gross, and it did lead to some changes. I was listening to the passenger responses, and there was the dad and the daughter, and he was like, I didn't want this. I failed my daughter. And it's like, dude, you didn't fail her. This wasn't your fault.
Right.
And then they were also saying, they were really not mad at the crew members at all. I couldn't believe that the passengers were all so cool. And it's like, yes, they're not mad at them. They're mad at you, the people at corporate who allowed this to happen. The crew members are just dealing with the problem firsthand. They didn't cause this. They're just there to work.
I felt like the biggest twist of the whole episode was the fact that the guy who was there to try to impress his father-in-law and was there with his fiance, that they were still together. Because
they kept showing images of the father-in-law looking so intimidating, like,
yeah. And they didn't, his wife wasn't in, I'm like, okay, this is 12 years later. Like, clearly they split up, but they gave us a twist at the end. They're still together.
I was thinking, like, this is going to lead to him saying, I had an epiphany as the poop was rising. I didn't want to be married at all. I needed to be free. That is not what happened. Everything went to plan.
Yeah, so good for them. And I love that it said that they still vacation together all the time, but on land.
Well, the father-daughter still cruise.
Yeah, they still cruise. So,
I mean, there's a section of the population who love cruises and make it their vacation for all their vacations. Like, I know I told a couple friends about this, and they were like, oh, we love cruises. And I was like, you? But you're cool.
No,
that shows my own biases.
A lot of people love cruises. And you know what? In the first 5 minutes of that documentary, I understood why people like them so much, because you just go, you forget about your troubles. You can get as drunk as you want. You can eat whatever you want. You can go gamble. You can go down the water slide. You can do whatever the hell you want. I can see why people need that freedom.
Well, why don't you just go to Vegas? But then again, that's my point of view popping up. I live in LA. It's easy to go to Vegas. They mostly live around the Gulf, which is a little further.
Yeah. Right. Not everyone has access to that like we do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I get it. I've gotten it because my eyes were opened a little bit to cruise culture, not necessarily the investigative structure that needed to be in place in this Disastertainment special. Again, it is Disastertainment. It is very entertaining. I did watch the first 3 of the Trainwreck anthology, and yeah, you better believe I'm watching the other 5.
There are themed cruises, like
Oh yeah, Star Trek.
I've almost been booked on the Outlaw Country cruise. I was almost booked on the Southern Rock cruise. There's D3. I was offered to be a dungeon master on D3 at sea. So that was like a Dungeons and Dragons cruise. I declined that. But there's also now a Comic-Con cruise, an official Comic-Con cruise.
From the San Diego Comic-Con people?
I just got an email about it today.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't get an email about it.
Well,
you don't want me on your cruise, Comic-Con?
Check your promotions tab. It may be there.
Let's see. Exclusive Megan merch, IKEA. You know what? I'll look for this later. Yeah. No, I was wrong. And cruises are a thing that people love. Maybe they're not for everyone, but that not everything is for everyone.
Right.
That said, I'm still not enticed to go on a cruise.
Well, especially after watching this, I think.
Due to the poop disaster. The poop cruise. All to the poop deck. Which is all of the decks.
Yeah, every deck's the poop deck on the poop cruise. Man, oh man.
When you pay for the water view, you get more than you bargained for on the poop cruise.
Well, I am on my way to a themed event, actually. I'm headed to D&D in a castle.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's on land.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Oh, good, too.
Yeah, but I'll be playing D&D for the next... I suppose when this comes out, I'll be in it. I will be in it. I'll probably be rolling dice as this posts for all we know.
Cool. Well, have fun. I mean, that sounds fun. It's like a luxury D&D experience. So, you never know what could happen when your basic human needs are erased on a luxury trip.
Right. With a bunch of people who like swords and axes and things.
I bet people would just be cool and leave, though, because I don't think tabletop people are that irrational. But, I could be wrong. That's what this thing taught us.
They won't be stuck there. They'll be able to leave because it's on land.
Yeah, they could just leave. They could just get in a car and leave. That's what I love about land. I was invited to a party once for a premiere on a boat, and I said, cool. But then I realized you can't leave a party early if it's on a boat.
Right.
And then I started to feel like, let me off this boat. So I don't think a cruise is for me. It was just around like the marina over here. So I don't think I'm a cruise person.
How about a docked boat? Would you go
like the Queen Mary?
Mm-hmm.
I could do that. If it starts to leave, I'm gonna be mad.
I performed on the Queen Mary. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, I'd like to go. I could do that. As long as the door is open and I can leave. But I don't know about getting lost at sea for days. I guess the poop wouldn't overflow. Yeah, I'm curious about who in our listeners loves cruises. So I'd like to hear from you if that's you.
Email us, please. Let us know.
Or leave us a 5-star review and mention cruises, but it's got to be 5 stars. All right, I think that does it for us. Maybe we'll catch you on another Trainwreck anthology. Maybe we won't, but there's always something to watch, and we will be helping you find it, even if it's sometimes bad. We'll tell you what not to watch. That's part of it.
Yeah, that's true. We have watched a few things for your benefit, audience, so that you never, ever watch them.
Yes.
But this one's fun.
Yes. It's not the electric state. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Intro Skippers with Jason Charles Miller and Kim Horcher is produced and edited by Kim Horcher and Jason Charles Miller. The name order doesn't really matter. Additional writing by Kim Horcher. Theme song and incidental music by Jason Charles Miller. Take it away, me. You can rate and review this show, 5 stars only please, anywhere you'd like, and you might find your review read on a future episode. Got a question? Email us at introskipperspod@gmail.com. That too could be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Intro Skippers on your favorite podcast platform, but preferably one we're actually on. All right, thanks for getting this far. Here's a special treat just for you. I'm gonna stop talking.